Right now on Morning News Now, an unprecedented trial officially underway. This morning, former President Donald Trump, now a criminal defendant, as day 2 of jury selection begins in his New York hush money trial.
And we're not going to be given a fair trial. It's a very, very sad thing.
We have team coverage with why many potential jurors have already been dismissed, plus what it could all mean for the November election. Also this morning, fear and frustration across the U.S. ahead of a potentially widening war in the Middle East. What an Israeli official tells NBC News about plans to retaliate following Iran's aerial attack. Plus, workplace woes, the new research that shows just how much your relationship with your boss could be taking a toll on your mental health. And she's got the fever. It's official. Basketball star Caitlin Clark is heading to Indianapolis as the #1 pick in the WNBA draft. We'll bring you highlights from last night's big event and how this new class of ballers is ushering in a new era for women's sports. Breaking viewership records along the way.
Exactly. No big surprise here, but we'll dig into a lot of things that happened in the draft coming up in a little bit. Good to have you with us this morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. We're going to get started today with the criminal trial of former President Donald Trump, who is due back in a Manhattan courtroom for the second day of jury selection.
Yesterday, Mr. Trump came face to face with some of the potential jurors who could decide his fate in the hush money case. Though on day 1, the judge dismissed nearly half of them. Trump is charged with 34 counts of falsifying business records. They're related to an alleged payment made to silence adult film star Stormy Daniels about an alleged sexual encounter in the run-up to the 2016 election. Trump has denied any wrongdoing and criticized the trial following yesterday's proceedings.
It's a scam. It's a political witch hunt. It continues, and it continues forever. And we're not going to be given a fair trial. It's a very, very sad thing.
We've got a team standing by to talk more about the legal and political implications of this historic trial. We're going to start things off with NBC News national correspondent Yasmin Masugian, who's outside the courthouse, and our legal analyst Danny Savalos, who's here with us on set. Good morning to both of you. So, Yasmin, let's start with jury selection. Lawyers get to pose questions to those prospective jurors about their views, about their schedules. What kind of answers did we hear yesterday, and at what point could we actually see jurors selected as opposed to just dismissed?
So we started with 96, started the day with a pool of 96 jurors. By the time they actually got up and going, we were about 2.5 hours into the day. It was immediately reduced to 34 jurors, I believe, and that was because of the 2 questions that were asked at the top. Do you have any interferences that would keep you from showing up to trial over the next 6 weeks? A lot of folks raised their hands there. And then subsequently, can you be impartial? A lot of folks raising their hand there saying they cannot be impartial. And that is why Judge Juan Merchan subsequently dismissed them. So they started off with a jury pool essentially then of 34. They got through 10 jurors, although now there are only 9 seats because one of those jurors was in fact excused, and it was because of a question about whether or not they had strong opinions about Donald Trump. It was juror number 3 at the time and was asked if they had strong opinions about Donald Trump. The juror said yes, and Judge Juan Merchan immediately then excused that juror. I will say that Trump's attorneys, Todd Blanche, actually took issue with excusing that juror. And I was looking through kind of her, because it was a female profile, as who she was. She lives in Harlem, is from Texas, works in retail, has an MBA, no children. And then also where she gets her media from, Google, TikTok, Al Jazeera. That was also a question that I thought was interesting going into jury selection yesterday. And I was taking a look at some of the jurors so far that they've gotten through, all of them saying New York Times, USA Today, CNN. I've seen a lot of New York Times, CNN as well. So those were kind of some of the questions that they've been getting through so far. And just to kind of give you a scope, guys, of how long this is going to take, we're looking at a possible runway of 2 weeks with some possible days off there for Passover. But if you think about just how long it takes to get through just 10 jurors by 4:30 p.m. yesterday, that tells you how much longer it could take to actually seat a jury.
Danny Savalos, that's exactly what I want to ask you about. Could we see this process take longer than usual, given how high profile it is? And what did you make of what happened yesterday?
Yeah, I was taking the over 2 weeks of jury selection. I think that wasn't enough. It might be more than 2 weeks. The court isn't working every day. But yesterday was a little unusual in that there were a lot of motions and arguments in the morning, and we really didn't get to jury selection until well into the afternoon. But just getting through 10 jurors gives you an idea of how tedious jury selection can be. It's tedious even in a run-of-the-mill case involving a defendant you've never heard of. In a case like this, where everybody has at least heard of the defendant, it's going to be really tough to distinguish between people who know of him, maybe have opinions about him, but then also people who can set aside those opinions and decide the case on the facts and the evidence. It's going to be a tough slog.
So as Danny just mentioned, it wasn't just jury selection yesterday. So Yasmin, let's talk about some of the rulings we got from the judge. We know Mr. Trump's attendance at the trial is now mandatory, but it looks like the former president did get some maybe minor evidentiary wins concerning the infamous Access Hollywood tape and his deposition tape in the E. Jean Carroll sex abuse case. Real quick, what can you tell us about those?
Yeah. So Merchan had already ruled on the admission of the Access Hollywood tape, but Steinglass, one of the attorneys for the people, brought that up again, wanting admission of the Access Hollywood tape to kind of set the scene as to how desperate they were at the final days of the 2016 election and why they would go through this hush money ordeal with both Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal. Judge Juan Merchan decided that they cannot play the Access Hollywood tape for the jury. However, they can use the transcript. That was kind of one win for the president. The other is the one that you mentioned, is the admission of his deposition for the E. Jean Carroll case. The judge also saying that was prejudicial to provide that evidence to the jury, so would not allow that evidence to be provided. So some minor wins for the former president yesterday when it comes to some of the evidentiary hearing that they went through. But nonetheless, I'm sure we're going to see more of that. And just one other date, guys, that we got to look out for, and that is the 23rd. That's next week, Tuesday, where they're going to be hearing as to whether or not Donald Trump violated the gag order.
Danny, let's bring you in on that. So prosecutors are pointing to something that was posted on social media. What could happen here?
Judge is setting a gag order hearing for next week. A lot of folks have wondered why. It made a lot of sense to me. If I was the judge, I might have done the same thing. And I don't know exactly his thinking, but it probably went something like this. If you set the hearing next week, then if he misbehaves between now and then, you can kind of consolidate everything and do it all at once. But I think far more likely, Judge Merchan, by all indications, wanted to get started. We've got hundreds, if not thousands of people here waiting to get to jury selection. We want to get a move on. We've been in motions and arguments all morning. Let's just table this and let's start picking jurors. We have a lot of work to do, folks. I think that's probably why the judge set this off, put it to next week, so he could at least start taking a bite out of this process that really could drag on for weeks and weeks if he doesn't get it under control.
All right, Danny and Yasmin, thank you both. Appreciate it.
Let's now get to NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray. He's going to join us on the political implications of the trial. Mark, thanks for joining us this morning. So Trump now required to attend the trial in person, as we just heard a moment ago. This could go on for at least 6 weeks. Of course, this is during a time when Trump could be making his rounds in some battleground states, just continuing that campaign on the ground as we lead up to November. Has his campaign indicated how they plan on navigating all this? I mean, we have also seen these courtroom appearances sort of turn into almost political campaign moments for the former president. What do they make of this?
Yeah, Savannah, on the surface, this is a significant disadvantage for Donald Trump. He's going to be ceding the battleground campaign trail to President Joe Biden. And even today, President Biden heads to battleground Pennsylvania, where he's going to actually spend 3 days in that crucial swing state. The way that Donald Trump and his campaign are going to navigate this is use the weekends to make their own campaign treks. And so just last weekend, we saw the former president in Pennsylvania. Next weekend, his campaign says they're going to be in battleground North Carolina. But as you mentioned, Savannah, the trials Monday through Friday allow for the former president to say his own piece. And so I think that in addition to yesterday's brief comments that we heard from the former president, we might end up hearing extensive comments and press and Q&As before and after the hearings.
So, Mark, a recent New York Times Siena College poll found views about Trump's guilt or innocence in the hush money case are divided along party lines. Well, independents' views on the case are split down the middle. Perhaps no surprise. That's what America looks like nowadays. What do you make of all that? Just how badly does Trump need to win over these independent voters, and how could this trial impact their opinion of him?
Yeah, this trial could actually end up having a very, very impact on those persuadable voters in the middle. And Joe, in addition to those independents who are kind of in the middle between thinking that Donald Trump is guilty or not guilty, 25% said that they didn't know enough information. And so we're going to find out over the next 6 weeks or even longer how people might be able to make up their minds. And so I think, have kind of got caught in a system where, well, yeah, Republicans and Democrats have both made up their minds about former President Donald Trump. But that persuadable middle is worth watching over the next several weeks.
Mark, this hush money trial might be the only one that we actually see get underway or have any type of actual resolution by the point of getting to November. Is this a make or break moment for the former president in terms of his political viability and what happens next?
Yeah, again, we sometimes end up having these huge conclusions about make or break moments for Donald Trump. But I do think this is big on how it ends up playing out. And again, going back to the point I was just making to Joe, there are independents who probably are persuadable on this particular issue. And Savannah, it is worth knowing that we ended up seeing the legal drama end up helping Donald Trump with Republican primary voters in his successful campaign for the Republican presidential nomination. But now we're a different terrain. This is general election voters. And I think we all need to keep an open mind on how this might play out when it comes to public opinion.
Certainly. Smart and measured response. Mark, thank you so much.
Israel is vowing to strike back after Iran attacked the country with hundreds of drones and missiles.
Yeah, an Israeli official is now telling NBC News a response could be imminent. President Biden urged restraint from Israel, but also reaffirmed his administration's commitment to the country in its war with Hamas, as the White House seeks to prevent a wider war in the Middle East.
We're committed to a ceasefire that will bring the hostages home and preventing conflict from spreading beyond what it already has.
But as the humanitarian crisis worsens in Gaza, protesters are demanding the U.S. specifically stop supplying weapons to Israel. A group of demonstrators shut down the Golden Gate Bridge for 5 hours Monday. That was just one of a series of protests that took place across the country. In Chicago, police arrested about 40 people for blocking traffic at O'Hare International Airport.
For more, we're joined by NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley, who is in Beirut. So let's start by talking about that warning that an Israeli response to Iran's attack could be imminent. What are you hearing, and do we have any idea what that response could actually look like?
Yeah, guys, I'm not hearing anything additional to what we heard from that response, which was predictably quite ambiguous, as you'd hear from any operation of a military nature, especially something like this. They mentioned that there was, the Israelis, that they would want to respond in proximity to the Iranian attack. Now, again, that's pretty ambiguous. What does proximity mean? That could be in terms of timing, so they want to do it sooner rather than later. That could be in terms of geography, that they would want to strike Iran itself. But we have been hearing, in addition, from the Israelis that they may be using their attack to strike other Iranian proxies throughout the region rather than Iran itself. Now, that was what made this attack by the Iranians so unprecedented, that it was fired for the first time from Iran proper, not from Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, or the Hashid al-Shaabi in Iraq, all these Iran-backed proxy groups. So it seems as though Israel might be attacking proxy groups instead of Iran itself. Clearly a bid to avoid an escalation that the entire world is dreading, but that, if they do that, could put places like this, where I am now, Lebanon, in the firing line. Hezbollah, on the southern border of Lebanon with Israel, is by far Iran's strongest operator against Israel and could become the subject of its attack. Guys.
Matt, we've seen some interesting things happen within the region as a result of this growing conflict. We have countries like Jordan coming to Israel's defense while also being critical of Israel's military assault on Gaza. Tell us more about how Arab countries in the region are dealing with this recent escalation.
Well, I think the short answer is here that they're not really, because they're not going public about this. They're not discussing this to their populations, to their own domestic, publics who are going to be very, very angry because anger against Israel has spiked over the past 6 months, ever since Israel's incursion into the Gaza Strip that has now killed well more than 30,000 Palestinians. But the country among those three, there's Jordan, there's Saudi Arabia, and there's the United Arab Emirates. The country with the most skin in the game by far is Jordan. It shares a border with Israel. Its airspace was used, and we don't know exactly how because there's been differing accounts, by foreign governments, by the United States, France, and Britain to shoot down some of these Iranian missiles and drones. And there's differing reports, but it sounds as though Jordan may have participated in shooting down some of these projectiles themselves. But now the Jordanians are coming out and trying to say that this was a defense of Jordanian sovereignty. This wasn't necessarily them protecting the Israelis, which would be deeply, deeply unpopular within Jordan. But now, we just heard on CNN yesterday, the Jordanian foreign minister said that no matter where a projectile was coming from, if it crosses over Jordanian territory, the Jordanians are going to shoot it down. Now, that could be a major problem. They said that even Israel, if Israel fired over Jordanian territory, the Jordanians would shoot down their missiles and drones. Now, depending on how or whether Israel decides to retaliate, that premise, that notion by the Jordanian foreign minister, which again was public on CNN, that's about to be tested in a very, very real way. The Jordanian foreign minister says they're going to shoot down an Israeli counterattack against Iran. They may have to actually be held to that. They may have to actually turn their guns against the Israelis. The analysts I've been talking to say that is very, very unlikely. Guys.
All right, Matt Bradley. Matt, thank you so much.
For more now on the Biden administration's response to the Iran attack on Israel, we are joined by NBC News Chief White House Correspondent Peter Alexander. Hey, Peter, so Israel's allies, including President Biden, are urging restraint here, but it does look like Israel plans to move forward with some kind of response. What are you hearing from the White House, and what do we know about that response at this point?
Well, let's start with what we heard the president say to Benjamin Netanyahu in their last conversation over the weekend, effectively trying to urge this idea of restraint, saying take the win here. The damage could have been much worse in Israel. This could have escalated quickly into a wider war. The U.S., according to multiple officials, that we're speaking to right now, is expecting this response to be, as they describe it to us, limited in scope. And among the most likely options right now is that there would be strikes against the Iranian military, or more specifically, its proxies outside of Iran, perhaps in Syria, but not in Iran, which really would sort of raise the stakes here and escalate this much further to this point. Those are among some of the options right now. U.S. officials tell us they have not been briefed specifically on what the Israelis are considering doing at this point. They say the options could have changed in the time since. But among the considerations for the Israelis, according to these U.S. officials, was sort of a wide spectrum from, on one end, no military action whatsoever, and on the other end, something that could include strikes inside Iran. Again, something that the U.S. has largely been counseling Israel to avoid altogether right now. But this is a very delicate situation. The White House has been engaged very heavily from the very start of this. They do not expect, according to these officials, that whatever strikes the U.S. takes would focus on senior Iranian military officials. You'll remember that strike that first hit that consular building, the embassy complex in Damascus in Syria, where all of this began just a couple of weeks ago. That did kill several senior Iranian commanders.
So, Peter, we know the U.S. won't take part in any offensive actions against Iran. Is the White House expected to do anything else to sanction Iran for Saturday's attack? What can be done?
Well, it's a good question, and we have been posing those questions to administration officials. We just heard yesterday from the National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby on this very conversation, on the alliances that have fortified in support of Israel and its effort to try to deter Iran from any further attacks. And here's part of what John Kirby told us. Take a listen.
Much of the world today is standing with Israel. When the president spoke to the G7 leaders yesterday, they were unified in their condemnation of Iran and their determination to hold Iran accountable. At the president's direction, our teams are now following up with G7 capitals on new multilateral sanctions to target Iran's missile and other nefarious programs. G7 countries that had yet to designate the IRGC a terrorist organization are now considering doing so. And going forward, we will be working to further isolate Iran internationally and increase economic and other forms of pressure.
Again, John Kirby yesterday speaking to reporters here. The main words to take away from that are a desire to further isolate Iran during this time. The next several days are going to be worth watching. We're going to be keeping a close eye on the deliberations here behind closed doors as well. Back to you guys.
Absolutely. We know you will. Peter, Alexander, thank you so much.
Across town on Capitol Hill, House Speaker Mike Johnson says that he plans to advance the stalled military funding for Israel and Ukraine in a vote this week.
The Republican-controlled House of Representatives is also expected to send the articles of impeachment against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas to the Senate today. This is over his handling of the situation at the southern border.
A lot to cover. Joining us now for more on both stories is NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale. Ali, good morning. So let's start with what could be a break in that months-long stalemate over foreign aid funding due to divisions really within the Speaker's own party. The House now expected to take up separate bills to provide aid for Israel and Ukraine. So what do we know about these bills? How soon could this happen?
Look, this was already a messy situation, guys. The way that Speaker Johnson is now trying to attack it has multiple different prongs to it. And what one Republican member told me is the sense they got from the Speaker in a closed-door meeting yesterday was the reason they're breaking it up is because it's just important that some form of this military aid pass. Now, when you do it in chunks like this, Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and then a fourth bill that is sort of filled with other Republican foreign aid priorities, including the potential for something that we've talked about a lot, which is not outright giving Ukraine aid, but instead giving it to Ukraine in the form of a loan, specifically through frozen Russian assets. That's one of those bills that might be in that fourth tranche that we end up seeing the House vote on. But look, this is still a tricky situation for the Speaker because it wasn't just the question of how they voted on the aid, but the aid itself that could alienate key members of his conference and trigger a motion to vacate. So all of the foreign policy politics are still very much muddled with the House Republican politics. And I got to tell you, we're still hearing from people like Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene who say she doesn't like this. The question is, does she not like it enough to actually trigger that motion to vacate? That hangs over all of this, even as urgency mounts for this aid to actually get out the door.
Ali, let's also now talk about Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, as I had mentioned. So House Speaker Johnson is expected to send these articles of impeachment later today. But this came after Senate conservatives asked for a delay last week. Walk us through what we've seen so far. Why did they delay the process, and what do you think we'll see happen?
Yeah, it's a little bit of Groundhog Day when it comes to actually transmitting these articles of impeachment against the sitting Homeland Security Secretary. Initially, you're right. This was supposed to happen last week. And then after pressure from some conservative hardliners on the Senate side, the House side said, OK, we'll wait a few days. We'll do this next week. The key from the Senate conservatives that I was talking to was, A, to make sure that this wasn't a trial that started on a Thursday, which it would have yesterday, which it would have last week. And Thursdays are typically days that senators like to go, all right, we're getting out of town and we're going home. Instead, doing it on a Tuesday allows them the rest of the week to apply pressure on Senator Schumer, but that pressure isn't taking them anywhere. And frankly, that's one of the questions that I asked the senators. I said, hey, have you guys talked to anyone who's going to be voting differently on Tuesday than they would have on the prior Thursday? I got a little bit reamed out in the room for that one because the reality is they don't have the votes for an actual conviction in this trial, but instead they're just pushing for the trial itself.
Yeah, I mean, Schumer has already said he plans to move to dismiss the charges. 43 senators wrote a letter to him urging him to hold a full impeachment trial. What is Schumer required to do?
Well, look, he's going to do this as quickly as possible within the rules, though those conservative senators say that the rules are that you need to hold a trial, that the defense witnesses need to be in there, that the person who's actually being impeached needs to be subpoenaed and thusly in the room. All of those things are not happening. We don't expect the defense attorneys for Mayorkas to be there, certainly not Mayorkas himself. And I think the reality of this is just important to point out here. In order to convict Alejandro Mayorkas and actually impeach him, you would need a 2/3 majority, 67 votes. You definitely do not have that. You don't even have all 49 Republicans on board with the idea of impeaching him. Instead, to dismiss these charges, which is what we're going to see happen most likely, it only takes 51 votes. That's what we're going to see Schumer do, and that's what it's going to look like on Tuesday.
All right, Ali Vitale, thank you so much.
Let's turn now to weather. We've got a chain of severe storms that's going to continue moving across the plains this morning, and some of the storms could spawn large hail and even strong tornadoes.
A lot to look out for. Angie Lastman's here with the forecast. Angie, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. This storm system is going to be problematic for a couple of days for us with multiple impacts. So let's start with what's going on right now and what we have to look forward to through the day today. Notice we've got quite an active morning already across parts of the plains moving into the Midwest. That's where we're going to see the best chance of some of these stronger storms here through the day today. But right now we've got a tornado watch that's in effect for parts of Nebraska, Iowa, and stretching down into Kansas. We're going to continue to see these long lines of thunderstorms working their way farther to the north and east over the next couple of hours. And even where we don't see the watches and warnings right now, we still have some quite a lot of lightning and some active weather going on. Could potentially slow you down for that early morning commute in this region. This is why we're dealing with this. We've got a storm system that's going to continue to intensify through the day today and then move to the east as we get through today and tomorrow. Today, the main impacts are going to be across parts of the Midwest. We'll have the potential for some really heavy rain, impressive rainfall rates at some points across this region. So the isolated flash flooding potential will be there. We'll be keeping a close eye on that. But more importantly, 25 million people at risk for these stronger storms. That means places like Cedar Rapids to Quincy, down through Springfield and Little Rock have the chance to see all impacts on the table. But really concerning, we'll watch for the ingredients to be there for some of these stronger tornadoes to develop. That means EF2 or higher. And the bullseye has places like Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, and Quincy in it. That's going to last through this evening as well. And by tomorrow, the system's still on the move. So it works across parts of the Midwest, the Ohio Valley here for the early parts of the day. And then the East Coast gets in on the action as we get into the later parts of our afternoon for tomorrow. But once again, we'll have that risk of severe weather. Detroit to Louisville has the best chance, and all of those same impacts are going to be on the table. I mentioned some impressive rainfall rates, and we will have that 1 to 2 inches per hour in some of these spots. So Minneapolis to Omaha, that's where we'll look at the highest rainfall totals by the time we get through midweek, guys.
All right, looks wet.
Yeah,
indeed.
A lot going on. Thank you.
Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, we're flipping the script country style with a successful songwriter who's been in the business for decades. Why she says the time is finally right for her newest project celebrating African Americans in country music.
At first, though, after the break, the armorer in the deadly Rust movie shooting now facing her fate. More from her sentencing when we come back. We are back with the latest on the Rust movie shooting. In a New Mexico courtroom, armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed was sentenced to the maximum penalty of 18 months in prison for the 2021 death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Gutierrez-Reed was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter last month. During the hearing, the presiding judge cited Gutierrez-Reed's lack of remorse, which was introduced into evidence in recorded jailhouse phone calls where she called jurors idiots and complained about the amount of time they deliberated. The trial of actor Alec Baldwin on involuntary manslaughter charges in this case is set to begin in July. He has denied any wrongdoing.
The FBI is now investigating what went wrong aboard the cargo ship that caused the collapse of a Baltimore bridge, killing 6 workers last month. NBC News Now anchor Tom Yamas has the details.
The FBI opening a criminal probe into the catastrophic Baltimore bridge collapse that left 6 construction workers dead. Federal agents boarding the container ship Dolly, the 985-foot vessel that slammed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge last month, sending it plunging into the Patapsco River. The investigation, which was first reported by the Washington Post, will look into the critical events leading up to the disaster. A key question, according to 2 senior law enforcement officials familiar with the investigation: did the crew have prior knowledge of any potential mechanical problems that would have made the vessel unsafe for the harbor? The moments after it left the port of Baltimore captured on this live stream, showing the lights flickering on and off minutes before the crash. In a court filing, the owner and manager of the Dolly seeking exoneration in connection to the crash, writing in part the casualty was not due to any fault, neglect, or want of care on the part of the petitioners.
The families are very happy and appreciative to the federal criminal investigation that was announced.
Attorneys representing 2 of the construction workers killed in the bridge collapse and the sole survivor announcing their own investigation.
They died while pursuing the American dream. But this was all preventable. That is why we've been brought in to investigate and find out what has happened and give these families a voice. Because the thing that's getting lost right now is the voice of the victims.
revealing harrowing new details about how they say Julio Cervantes Suarez, the sole construction worker who survived that fall to the water, made it out alive.
He survived because his window was manual. He was able to roll down the window and escape. You can imagine how frightening that is. And then he was able to hang on to some drifting steel and survive.
Our thanks to Tom Yamas for that report.
Coming up, a consequential case heading to the Supreme Court. When we come back, the argument set for today that could impact hundreds of prosecutions linked to the Capitol riots.
And prayer and peace, the new research that shows going to church could be good for your mental health. Your weekly check-in is next on Morning News Now.
Welcome back. Later today, the U.S. Supreme Court will hear arguments in a case that could impact hundreds of prosecutions in the January 6th riot at the Capitol.
At issue is whether a law written to prosecute white-collar criminals with evidence tampering is being appropriately applied to those involved in January 6th.
NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delanian joins us to help break this down. Ken, good morning. So help us understand how a law enacted, actually this came after the collapse of Enron. It's being used to prosecute the people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th. Walk us through that.
Good morning, Savannah and Joe. Yeah, that's right. This law was updated after the 2001 Enron scandal to cover electronic records because there was a lot of shredding of documents in that scandal, and the current laws did not cover all of what happened. But there's a debate about actually how far it goes. For example, Andrew Weissman, an NBC News legal contributor who was involved in helping the Senate write the update, says that actually it was designed to cover all kinds of obstructive behavior. And in fact, it's been used to charge more than 350 people who participated in the January 6th riots, and also former President Trump, with obstructing Congress's proceeding to count the electoral votes that day. And there's a debate about whether it actually applies, and that's what the court is going to decide ultimately after it hears arguments today.
So the man at the center of this case is Joseph Fisher. So who is he, and how could a ruling throwing out this charge of obstruction of an official proceeding against him, how could that not only help him, but perhaps former President Trump and some others?
There you go. Well, Joseph Fisher was, at the time he participated in the January 6th riots, a police officer in Pennsylvania, and he was charged with obstructing an official proceeding. The case against him is on hold while this proceeds through the appellate courts and the Supreme Court. But as I said, more than 350 other January 6th defendants have been charged, some convicted, some imprisoned on this charge. And it could impact all of their cases if this particular provision is ruled unconstitutional. And of course, this is one of the charges, one of several, levied against former President Trump in that Jack Smith special counsel indictment accusing Mr. Trump of trying to steal the election. Now, it wouldn't throw out the entire prosecution of Mr. Trump if this law is ruled unconstitutional, but it would significantly impact it. So a lot of eyes on these arguments this morning.
Ken, while we have you, I also do want to ask about something else here, the Supreme Court's decision to allow Idaho to enforce its ban on gender-affirming care for transgender youth. What's next in that legal fight, and does it impact the 22 other states with similar bans?
Well, as of now, no. The court is going to hear that case. But right now, what it's done is it's suspended the enforcement of that law for the plaintiffs in the case, but allowed the state to continue enforcing it for the rest of the state. And interestingly, it's not about the law. The justices were arguing about this thing called universal injunctions, how broadly a judge can rule in a case that affects thousands of other people in an entire state, or in some cases an entire country. The conservatives decided that this was the time they were going to take a stand against this practice, which is becoming increasingly common across the country. It also has an impact, though, because transgender people in Idaho now are prohibited, or minors will not have access to gender-affirming care, even if their parents approve under this law in Idaho.
All right, Ken Delanian, thank you very much.
Time for our weekly mental health check-in. We're kicking things off by taking a closer look at a report that suggests that your manager might have a bigger impact on your mental health than your own therapist. therapist.
I believe that, I think. Plus, we're also heading to church this morning for a closer look at how places of worship can improve your well-being.
Joining us now to help break those stories down is psychologist and licensed marriage and family therapist, Dr. George James. Dr. James, good to have you with us as always. So let's jump right in. We've got a report that surveyed 3,400 people across 10 countries, and it found 69% of those employees say their managers have just as much of an impact on their mental health as their spouse.
Wow.
51% say managers have even more of an impact than their own doctor. I don't know if the solution is the answer here, but what do we do about this, and what can people do just to make sure that their minds are healthy at work, especially if they don't have the best relationship with their manager?
Yeah, good morning, Joe. What this is really saying is that at work, we're really stressed and overwhelmed. And then when we go further in the study, it's not only employees are stressed, but also sometimes their managers and leaders. And what it says that that their job can be more stressful or impact their mental health more than their therapist, because they're only seeing their therapist maybe once a week or twice a week, versus you're at your work all the time. So what people can do is practice good mental health practices. Maybe see your therapist more, breathe in, exercise, but also recognize that you might need to distance yourself from some of the things at work so that you can have more work-life balance with the things that you do at home.
Let's also now talk about getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. This fear of uncertainty can impact a lot of people. So there's something that researchers call this scale, the tolerance of uncertainty. It can expose how good or maybe not so good you are at dealing with the unknown. If you're a person that struggles with the unknown, struggles with big questions of what if, walk us through how that can impact you and what you can do to try to stay healthy.
Yeah, with this scale of the intolerance of uncertainty is really saying that we all struggle with uncertainty on some level. We are somewhere on the scale. But if we are high on the scale, we really struggle with any level of uncertainty. So even part of being anxious is the unknown, is the what if this happens or what if that happens. But part of this is then being able to be more comfortable somewhere in the middle, where most of us are, with uncertainty, with the I don't know what's going to happen. And that might mean being able to say it will be okay, or I have resources, or I have done this before. Being able to do things like that or say things like that can help you tolerate that uncertainty a little bit more, because life is full of uncertainties.
No kidding. Gotta get used to that. All right, it's Tuesday. Let's take a trip to church anyway. Growing research shows there's a link between attending places of worship, churches, synagogues, mosques, and then mental well-being. But we have to keep in mind these findings come during a time when we know research shows church attendance across several religious groups in the U.S. is actually declining. So first of all, talk about the connection here between faith and mental health. And for those who don't consider themselves to be religious, don't want to go to one of those places, what can you do to still maybe reap some of the mental health benefits that we're seeing in some of these places?
Now, this was often a topic that wasn't always talked about, combining mental health and faith. But in doing this research, they recognize that people find a sense of community and belonging when they have a place of worship, when they go to a place of worship or have shared faith. Being able to be with others, to share, to commune, all these things that help people to feel actually better and have more strategies to deal with mental health challenges. But for those who might say, hey, I don't go to a place of worship, or I don't really have a place, I don't have a particular faith, you can find also community and belonging, because that is also helpful in reducing isolation and loneliness. So that might mean joining a group or joining a league or connecting with others so that you don't feel alone and by yourself. Having community and belonging is part of what happens for people with faith.
So important in so many ways. All right, Dr. James, as always, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time this morning. Back now with some financial headlines, starting with a potential lawsuit against entertainment giant Live Nation.
That's right. CNBC's Pippa Stevens joins us with that and other news. Hey, Pippa, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah. Shares of Live Nation are under pressure following a Wall Street Journal report that the Justice Department could file an antitrust suit against the company as soon as next month. Live Nation, which owns Ticketmaster, has long faced complaints it has too much influence over live events. The Justice Department has been investigating the company's practice for several years, but the probe picked up after Ticketmaster's site crashed in 2022 due to high demand for Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. Boeing is pushing back on a whistleblower's allegations over the safety of two of its planes, the 777 and 787 Dreamliner. Warning panels on the outside of the 787 could eventually break apart mid-flight. During a media briefing yesterday, two Boeing engineer executives described how the panels are fitted together, suggesting the 787's carbon composite skin is nearly impervious to metal fatigue found on the conventional aluminum body. The whistleblower, a former Boeing engineer, is set to testify at a Senate subcommittee hearing tomorrow. And Doc Martens is getting dinged today. Shares of the maker of the iconic steel-toed boots losing a third of their value in London. The company's U.S. business is struggling so much it has to spend even more for additional storage space for inventory it cannot sell. Doc Martens warning in a worst-case scenario, it will earn just a third of what it did last year. That's pretty surprising. Wow. I thought, the kids still like Doc Martens.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
not.
like Doc Martens. I love Doc Martens. I'm still breaking in a pair that I got 10 years ago because it takes some time, but I do like them. They're great shoes.
Yeah, so I'm surprised to hear that.
Hopefully they do better. All right, Pippa, thank you so much.
Well, after a historic night at this year's WNBA draft, the top talent in women's basketball are preparing for their big league debut. Fans lined up in Brooklyn yesterday for the league's first ever sold-out event following the biggest season in NCAA tournament history.
We've got the top first-round picks on tap for you this morning. No surprise. Caitlin Clark was picked first overall, of course, heading to the Indiana Fever, and she had this to say on the heels of her historic night.
Every single time you step on the floor, it's going to be a rivalry. I think so many teams are loaded with so much talent, and this is the most competitive league in the entire world, less than 144 spots. So you better bring it every single night.
Joining us once again is Cathie Davidson. She's a sports writer and the co-author of Love and Sports, When They Don't Love You Back, Dilemmas of the Modern Fan. Cathie, thanks again for being here. So Caitlin Clark joins an elite list of all-stars who hold the honor of being tapped #1 overall. By the way, she did it looking absolutely fabulous in head-to-toe Prada. Tell us, how big are the shoes she has to fill here?
I mean, they're pretty large. Obviously, Caitlin Clark comes in, with probably the most hype of any #1 pick that we've ever had, and that's saying a lot because we've had Diana Taurasi and some other gangbusters in years past. But she is joining Aaliyah Boston, who was last year's #1 pick and was Rookie of the Year last year as well. She has said that she knows that she will have to adjust her game to the level of defense that she'll face. But she also mentioned that she believes her passing is highly underrated, and that's where she can make the most immediate impact coming into the pros.
So last month we saw LSU's Angel Reese and South Carolina's Camila Cardoso battle it out head-to-head in the SEC tournament. Of course, one won the NCAA this year, one won it last year. Now they're going to be teammates in Chicago. How exciting is this for Sky fans? How do you see these two competing together now on the court?
I cannot wait to see Camila Cardoso and Angel Reese on the same team in a market like Chicago, in a basketball town like Chicago. This is going to be incredibly exciting to see. Don't make too much out of, the on-court rivalry. These are two competitors, and they will play nicely, quite fine when they're on the same team. I will say that the game changer here is that they will both be playing under Teresa Weatherspoon, a Liberty legend, shout out, who will be in her first year coaching. And that's really, that's kind of the best case scenario for both of these players to develop parts of their game that they still do need to develop.
So 3 of the top 12 picks were actually players from abroad, countries like France and Australia. What does that tell you about how the draft is evolving and the popularity maybe of WNBA even reaching overseas?
Yeah, I mean, we know that basketball is a global game, men's and women's, and that's something that the NBA and the WNBA continue to stress. And we saw that with this year's draft, absolutely. Carla Light and Layla Lacan and Nadia Pouch coming from overseas. Now, I will say that these are young players with a lot of upside, and we might not actually see them in the WNBA this year. The WNBA has a thing called draft and stash, where you can draft international players, and they'll continue to play in their domestic leagues until they are ready for the league. But this is actually very exciting to see, and it's a youth infusion from abroad.
We also got some news about a potential expansion of the WNBA. What do we know about that so far?
Well, so we already knew that there will be a 13th team next season that will be owned by the Golden State Warriors over on the NBA side. But yesterday, Commissioner Cathy Engelbert told reporters that she expects there to be 14 teams by 2026 and up to 16 teams by 2028. So this is just showing you how rapidly this league is expanding. We haven't had an expansion draft since 2008. And it shows you how much talent there is out there and how much fervor there is for these athletes.
Cathie Davidson, we've had so much fun talking with you through this process. Thanks for joining us this morning. Welcome back. We're about to see the great Keanu Reeves transform from the brooding, acrobatic hitman that is John Wick to a hedgehog. That's because Reeves has been cast as Shadow in the upcoming movie Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Fans were already excited when the long-running franchise announced it would add the anti-Sonic character. But with his dark hair and villainous aura, the casting seems pretty fitting. Reeves will star alongside franchise regulars like Jim Carrey, who voices another villain, Dr. Robotnik, and comedian Ben Schwartz as Sonic. The film is scheduled to hit theaters on December 20th. It's kind of fun, an animated film for him.
No kidding. Feels like a good choice. That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Don't go anywhere. The news continues right now. Good morning. Thanks for joining us this Tuesday. I'm Savannah Sellers.
And I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, gaveling into history, the striking first images of a former president in criminal court as we enter day 2 of jury selection in Donald Trump's high-profile hush money trial involving adult film actress Stormy Daniels. We're going to take you inside that Manhattan courtroom, prospective jurors weeded out, and the judge deciding they won't be able to watch a notorious piece of footage from Mr. Trump's past. In the Middle East, the global guessing game continues as Israel weighs its options to retaliate against Iran. We'll bring you what top U.S. officials say they know about a potential response, with protests flaring up across the country in the wake of more violence. New developments in that deadly Baltimore bridge collapse. A 4th body reportedly trapped inside a construction vehicle has now been recovered from the wreckage. The news comes as the FBI opens a criminal investigation into the tragedy, while the doomed ship's owner looks to limit liability for the disaster with a Civil War-era law. We are covering it all as questions mount over what was known in the moments before the crash. And it was a big night in Brooklyn last night. A historic WNBA draft took the Big Apple by storm. But where did Iowa powerhouse Caitlin Clark land in the pecking order? And what about the other standout players from this whirlwind NCAA season? We're going to bring you all the highlights coming up later in the hour. Loving all the attention that we're giving the draft this year.
Just all looked so fabulous. Obviously, the fashion is what I'm focused
Exactly.
on. I just can't get over how great they all looked. It's so much fun. Good for them.
We'll bring you that in a little bit. Of course, we're going to begin with former President Trump's historic hush money trial, now in its 2nd day of jury selection here in New York.
Yeah, and that is not going to be an easy task. About 200 New Yorkers were summoned for the first day of jury selection, but day 1 wrapped without any jurors being seated. Former President Trump was in the courtroom for it all, watching on from the defense table alongside his lawyers. Outside the courtroom, he was more vocal, slamming the judge overseeing the trial for not letting him attend his son's high school graduation, calling the case a scam. NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett has more from the first day in court.
Hey there, it was a surreal moment Donald Trump had fought to avoid. A former American president confined to a no-frills courtroom, getting a preview of some of the most salacious evidence prosecutors plan to offer at this trial, and a first glimpse of some of the lives of the everyday New Yorkers who will soon sit in judgment of him.
This morning, the heavy lift of selecting a jury to hear what's likely to become one of the most high-profile cases in history labors on. Donald Trump seated in a Manhattan courtroom, coming face to face for the first time with some of the men and women who could ultimately determine his fate. The former president is accused of falsifying his internal business records in order to bury evidence he had an adult film actress paid off just days before the 2016 election, an allegation he denies.
Nothing like this has ever happened before.
200 New Yorkers summoned for jury duty, slowly questioned in batches on day 1 of trial, many raising hands to signal they could not be fair. Those were quickly dismissed. One woman overheard walking out of court saying, "I just couldn't do it." Prospective jurors only hearing a brief outline of the 34 felony counts Mr. Trump faces as the judge ticked through a who's who of names from Trump world that could come up or serve as potential witnesses. The solemn, painstaking vetting process inside the courtroom, a contrast to what's been happening outside, with the presumptive GOP nominee railing against the timing of the state's case.
I'm not in Georgia or Florida or North Carolina campaigning like I should be. It's perfect for the radical left Democrats.
The judge publicly warning Mr. Trump his attendance at trial now mandatory, and if he doesn't show up, a warrant will be issued for his arrest, but was non-committal about granting Mr. Trump a day off next month to attend his son's high school graduation. At the same time, some evidentiary wins for the former president's team heading into trial, including the judge barring prosecutors from playing the infamous Access Hollywood tape for the jury, though they can reference what he said.
Another issue to keep an eye on right now, possible violations of the gag order prohibiting Mr. Trump from attacking trial witnesses. Prosecutors have asked the judge in this case for a $3,000 fine for Mr. Trump's recent posts about people online. That issue will be heard next week while jury selection continues on today. Back to you.
All right, Laura, thank you so much. For more on this, let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Angela Senadella. Angela, good morning. Always great to have you with us. So just your reaction so far to this process, that no one has actually been seated, so many have been dismissed. Is this a tougher uphill climb than in other cases that are less high profile?
Yes, I mean, quite absolutely, just given the divide in the country, in this city over politics. But I am going to say that I have faith in this process. I see a judge here who's trying his hardest to make sure it is fair, to give the most exhaustive survey of questions that has ever been given to these jurors to try to weed out people with bias. Also to allot at least 2 weeks to this process. He is not rushing it. So I have faith that we are going to find, it's only 18 people at the end of this. There are going to be 18 people who I believe can be impartial enough, regardless of their politics, to give the former president a fair trial.
Let's talk about this ruling from yesterday. The judge is basically saying prosecutors can't play the infamous Access Hollywood tape. They can't play Trump's deposition from the E. Jean Carroll deposition from that lawsuit. But they can discuss it. So how significant is that?
It is significant. And this is what judges have to do. They have to make these fine line decisions almost off their gut. I mean, you can't really quantify the difference between a transcript and a video and how that would prejudice the jury. But that's the judge's role, to allow things that are relevant to the jury. So in this case, the prosecution's allowed to bring it in because they're claiming that it's related to motive. So they say it's instrumental to their case. But you also know that you can't just have a jury convict someone because they think he's an awful person. It has to be based on the facts that are in front of them. So the judge here had to make this fine line decision, and it's one that could possibly be appealed. But look, at this time, he tried his best. This is what judges do all day long.
We also just heard at the end there from our colleague Laura Jarrett about this, what we're going to see next week regarding the gag order. Walk us through the options that the judge has after some posts on social media from the former president.
So he could institute a fine. He could also expand the gag order. There's a lot that he could do here. But the fact that he waited a week for this hearing is significant. If his primary purpose here is to protect the safety of everyone in the courtroom, of the witnesses, of his staff, of the counsel, etc., it is likely something that he would have pushed up immediately. Safety is paramount. But no judge here wants to walk into this constitutional swamp of trying to figure out, well, what about the First Amendment rights of a campaigning president? We've never had this before. So I think it's significant he's waited a week. I think he's trying to see, well, what else is Trump going to do? Is he going to push the line further, or is he going to leave it as is?
See what actually happens here with getting the jury sat, first of all, because that seems to be first priority.
A lot to do. Angela Senadella, thank you so much.
Now to those growing tensions across the Middle East and here in the U.S. as the world awaits Israel's response to Iran's weekend drone and missile attack. Here at home, protesters calling for a ceasefire disrupted cities nationwide yesterday, shutting down major roads and snarling traffic. But Iran's attack has renewed efforts on Capitol Hill to increase financial support for Israel. Speaker of the House unveiling a new plan for a vote on that long-stalled aid package. NBC's chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel has the latest from Jerusalem.
Israel's war cabinet is meeting yet again today for the third day in a row to discuss a possible military response against Iran. But Israeli officials are being very tight-lipped about how that might take place, where, or to what extent.
Israel says it will retaliate to Iran's unprecedented and unsuccessful missile and drone attack. While touring a base that was lightly damaged, the chief of staff of the Israeli army gave no hints.
Iran will face the consequences for its actions.
4 U.S. officials tell NBC News they expect Israel's response to be limited in scope and most likely involve strikes against Iranian forces and Iranian-backed proxies outside of Iran. Iran controls well-armed militias in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. Striking them would not be seen as provocative as hitting Iran directly, but could also trigger a violent response, especially in Lebanon, home to Hezbollah, the world's most powerful non-state military. But as of now, it's all a guessing game. U.S. officials stress they have not been briefed on Israel's final decision, which may change. Last night, Iran's foreign minister saying its response to future action from Israel will be, quote, immediate and severe. Israel and Iran have fought a shadow war for decades, which burst into the open earlier this month when Israel bombed the Iranian consulate in Damascus, killing senior Iranian military officials. The emir of Qatar, working to broker a ceasefire in Gaza, overnight called it all a distraction from the war in Gaza, where many of the 2.3 million people, according to aid agencies, are on the brink of starvation. In multiple American cities yesterday, pro-Palestinian protesters took to the streets, blocking traffic from the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco to Seattle, to the airport, Chicago's O'Hare Airport, and New York to demand a ceasefire.
Israel is trying to strike a difficult, if not impossible, balance of reestablishing deterrence with Iran, showing strength at home without provoking a wider war. But what Israel does and what Israel thinks won't be escalatory is very unlikely to be shared by Iran.
All right, Richard, thank you. For more now, we're joined by Hagar Shamali. She's the host of Oh My World on YouTube and former NSC director for Syria and Lebanon. Hagar, good to have you with us. So the ball really does seem to be in Israel's court right now. Netanyahu has faced pressure from allies to lower the temperature, but then some of his far-right cabinet members are saying the opposite. What are the options Israel has for a response right now?
Thanks. Well, thanks for having me. Israel has a few ways they could respond if you want to put them simply in categories of low, medium, and high. Low could look something like, for example, cyber attacks and maybe some commando raids in certain areas, especially where you have IRGC units in Syria in particular. That's neighboring, it's easy, it's not within Iran's borders. Something medium could be more Iranian bases across the Middle East, for example, in Iraq and Syria in multiple areas. Where you get something more major is within Iran's borders, but even within that, you have scales of major. They could do something like hitting their air bases that are along the Persian Gulf, or they could go into further and hit some bases that are more inland. But they'll likely, if they go inside Iran's borders, then they'll stick to something that are more military facilities. Either way, that is as major as I would expect it to get. I don't expect something that would target anything like civilians or city infrastructures or anything like that, because Israel's aware that they have the U.S. backing and alliances for defensive measures, but not to go start a war.
Hagar, Iran has never openly attacked Israel in these 4 decades since the revolution, but there's been this sort of not-so-secret shadow war that's been going on between the two countries. Now that we've seen this actually play out in the open, an attack like what we saw over the weekend, what does that mean? What's the significance of that, and how that could potentially play into a wider conflict in the region?
Well, on one hand, it's very hard to put the genie back in the bottle, especially in the Middle East, unfortunately. It takes time. And I'm not trying to deviate from this topic, but I do believe that a ceasefire, if it were reached, just even a temporary ceasefire, which I think is more likely than a permanent one, a temporary ceasefire would cool the jets all around, because nobody would want to disturb that. Iran is trying to pretend as well that they did this on behalf of the Palestinians, which doesn't make any sense, but they are trying to communicate that publicly as well. And so it would cool things down. But as you said, this not so secret shadow war, it's now out in the open, and it elevates tensions all around. And what happens is that when you have a situation like that, it makes any maneuver like a match that could be lit very easily.
So, Hagar, looking at the Middle East, what can we take away from the fact that Arab countries like Jordan quickly moved in seemingly to help defend Israel? Earlier this morning, Matt Bradley said, well, Jordan's saying, no, Jordan was defending Jordan. But what's the takeaway here?
Yeah, well, listen, on one hand, you have that this is Jordan's airspace. By the way, also Saudi Arabia helped, and that's their airspace. Sure. So on that end, of course, they don't want foreign objects flying in their airspace that are aggressive in any manner. But that said, they could have chosen not to cooperate. They could have chosen not to help. The fact is that Iran's assault showed two major things. One, that Israel is very well capable of defending itself, that its defenses are strong, especially with partners. But more importantly, at a moment when Israel was seeming increasingly isolated, that in fact its alliances are quite strong, and that there are these countries, including Arab allies, that are ready to stand to at least to make sure that there is no regional-wide war. It may not be in favor of Israel, but they do seem to believe that aggression of this kind, that ballistic missiles and cruise missiles and drones of this kind, that this should not happen.
All right, Hagar Shamali, thank you so much as always. Appreciate your expertise.
Let's get you over to weather now. A severe storm system is stretching from Texas to South Dakota, and it's going to continue to move east throughout the week. We will get a check on your forecast.
Yeah, Angie Lastman is here. Angie, good morning.
Hi, good morning, guys. You're exactly right. Storm system that's going to work across the country here over the next day or so, and leaving us with the potential for some heavy rain as well as those strong storms. Already seeing some of that come to fruition this morning with some of these tornado watches that are in effect extending from parts of Kansas into Nebraska and out towards Iowa. We've got some lines of thunderstorms that are quite strong and robust this morning. Even farther north of that tornado watch, still pretty active morning stretching into parts of the Midwest. And this is one of the spots that we're going to be watching closely through the day today. Here's the storm system we're tracking. It'll strengthen as we go through the rest of your morning, and it'll be on the move through the day. That means that line of thunderstorms likely will shift to the east here, and we're talking strong storms across the Midwest, but also some really impressive rain associated with that, with some rainfall with hourly rainfall rates rather from 1 to 2 inches. Impressive. By the time this is all said and done, we could pick up some upwards of 3 inches in some of these spots. We're also concerned about the chance for some strong storms developing into severe storms. Those potentials for some strong winds, the hail, all out there, but we're also going to be watching closely for a couple strong tornadoes to develop. The ingredients will all be there. You can see where we're looking at the larger tornadoes possible from Des Moines to Kirksville, down through Quincy, up through Cedar Rapids. That's the bullseye of where we have that best chance of seeing the tornadoes through the day today. But it's quite expansive, even as far south as St. Louis, Rolla, Effingham. We're going to see the potential for this up into portions of Illinois as well. So keep an eye out for this, not just through the morning hours and into the afternoon, but even as we get into this evening. That storm system works its way to the east and brings the potential for some active weather to the Ohio Valley tomorrow. Along the East Coast, you'll see that rain working in by later in the day. But it's the Ohio Valley that I just mentioned that'll see that once again chance for some strong storms. 19 million people will be at risk of this. Hail, tornadoes, wind gusts, all possible into tomorrow. Meanwhile, have you noticed that it feels like summer for some spots across the eastern half of the country? I have. It was quite warm in New York City yesterday. Today we'll do kind of a repeat performance, but we've got that warm tropical air kind of working its way north thanks to our atmospheric setup. That means the temperatures are running way above normal. Indianapolis going to hit 81 degrees today, running 17 degrees above normal. Nashville into the mid 80s. We've got Charlotte near 90. New York once again into the 70s today. We keep that going, especially for parts of the southeast here as we get through the rest of your work week. 90s for Jacksonville on Friday, mid 80s for Raleigh on Friday. It's going to be quite warm. It doesn't last for all that much longer beyond Friday, but we will be anywhere from 10 to 15 degrees above normal through that time period. By the time we get into the weekend, though, guys, of course, cool air arrives and brings us back.
Summer is not here.
Summer is not here.
All right.
Yesterday was fabulous.
It was. Sunny.
We have you to thank. Angie Lawson, thank you so much. We've got much more to come this hour of Morning News Now, including a headline performance from basketball great Caitlin Clark at last night's WNBA draft right here in New York.
But first, under investigation, the FBI launching a criminal probe into that deadly Baltimore bridge collapse as a fourth body is recovered from the wreckage. Our Tom Costello is covering it all next.
We are back now with new developments about that bridge collapse in Baltimore last month. The FBI is now joining in the investigation into the cargo ship that slammed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Investigators are looking into what the crew knew as the massive container ship left port. It comes as a fourth victim has been recovered. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello joins us now with the latest. Tom, good morning.
Hey, Savannah. So we're told this is a criminal investigation looking into what the crew knew before the crash? Was there any evidence that the ship might lose power and become uncontrollable while still in Baltimore waters? It comes as the owner-operators of the ship are invoking a pre-Civil War law to limit their liabilities. Photos from the Washington Post capturing FBI agents climbing up the side of the massive container ship Dolly, executing a search warrant. The ship still trapped in the wreckage of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, a month after the ship crashed into the bridge at 1:30 a.m. Late Monday, word that a fourth body has been recovered. Law enforcement sources tell NBC News the FBI is focused on whether any member of the crew had prior knowledge of the ship's mechanical problems that would make it unsafe. Maritime law attorney James Power.
I understand a crew's still aboard, so they'll interview the crew. They'll probably, I would assume, coordinate with the notes of the Coast Guard and the NTSB for any investigations.
The NTSB tells NBC News its investigators are looking into reports that alarms were going off on the ship while it was still in port, suggesting a potential power problem before the ship left port.
They needed the assistance of Hyundai, who is the manufacturer of equipment in the engine room, to download data from the electrical power system and look at the circuit breakers.
Attorneys for two of the bridge repair workers who died and one survivor say the men were sitting in their cars on a break when they were suddenly thrown into the water below without warning. Two remain missing.
Baltimore has temporarily lost a bridge, but 6 families have permanently lost irreplaceable loved ones.
The mayor of Baltimore now promising legal action against the ship's owner, the manufacturer and operator. But the owner and manager have already invoked a law dating back to 1851 that limits their liability only to the value of the damaged ship, not the victims' families or the destroyed bridge.
This law was used to protect the owner of the Titanic. That's how ridiculous this is.
Okay, there is an exception to that 173-year-old law. If the owner of the ship knew the ship had problems before it left port, then the law may not apply. So this FBI investigation could be critically important. All companies involved have declined to comment. Savannah?
Tom, I know we're also learning how the lone survivor managed to get out of the water of that team of construction workers. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's right. He is Julio Cervantes, and he survived falling off the bridge in his truck and down into the freezing water. He doesn't swim. He said he rolled down the windows and climbed out and then clung to a piece of debris until he was rescued. But thankfully, his car didn't have electric windows. He could roll them down in order to get out. Savannah.
Wow. All right, Tom Costello, thank you so much.
The weeks-long search for 2 missing Kansas mothers has ended tragically. Police say both of the women are dead after they found 2 bodies in Oklahoma. Court documents now reveal a custody battle may have led to their deaths. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock joins us now with the details on this. Sam, good morning.
Joe, good morning. It took state and local law investigators and also the FBI, Joe, more than 2 weeks to find the missing moms who had just traveled down here about 45 minutes from their small town in Kansas. Right now, we are awaiting confirmation from the medical examiner's office, but police here do believe the bodies they found were theirs. As for police also talking about what the motivation might have been for the grandmother they say was behind this, holding on to her grandkids at all costs.
The desperate search for 27-year-old Veronica Butler and 39-year-old Jillian Kelly appears to have come to a sobering end.
This case was tragic. You have 2 people who are dead and 4 people that committed an absolutely brutal crime.
Texas County officials charging these 4 suspects with murder, conspiracy, and kidnapping. Authorities say Butler was driving from Kansas to Oklahoma to pick up her kids for a birthday party, with Kelly there to supervise when they were intercepted by a group that included Tiffany Adams, the children's paternal grandmother. Police say Adams has been waging a custody battle with Butler over her grandkids for years and allegedly resorted to violence.
It has certainly been a tragedy for everybody involved.
According to a court affidavit, the teenage daughter of one of the women charged told police the suspects were part of an anti-government group that had a religious affiliation, with state investigators learning they call themselves God's misfits and met on a regular basis. Further in those court documents, the teen says her mom confessed that they were involved in the deaths of Butler and Kelly, telling investigators they used burner phones to communicate and block the road to stop Butler and Kelly and divert them to where Adams and several others were waiting. Police ultimately tracing 5 stun guns and 3 prepaid cell phones back to Adams. The investigation starting with Butler's abandoned car found by a family member after the women didn't show up at a party.
The evidence that was discovered inside of that abandoned vehicle and around it, we're able to help our investigators determine that there was foul play involved.
Now some closure, but not necessarily healing for this community.
Absolutely devastating. They were both young and vibrant, and they deserved more.
According to that teenager, Joe, who provided all this information to police in the affidavit, this was not the first attempt on Butler's life. She says the group had actually traveled to Kansas back in February and had planned to throw an anvil through her windshield to make it look like an accident, but it didn't work because Butler never left her house. All 4 suspects are still here at the jail. So far, they have not been assigned any sort of representation. Back to you.
All right, Sam, thank you so much.
Let's get to international headlines now, starting in Copenhagen, where a landmark building went up in flames.
NBC's Claudio Lavanga joins us from Rome with that and other world headlines. Claudio, good morning.
Good morning, guys. That's right. Earlier today, a fire broke out at the old Stock Exchange building in Copenhagen, one of the most iconic buildings in the capital of Denmark. Now, the historic Renaissance building also serves as the headquarters of the Dutch Chamber of Commerce. Local media aired live video of what looks like people carrying paintings out of the building to save them from the fire. The building was under renovation when the fire broke out. There are no reports of injuries. Let's go to Pakistan now, where authorities say at least 39 people have died after lightning and heavy rains battered the southwest of the country for days. Some of the victims died in flash floods, others in landslides, and some were even killed by lightning. Images posted online show large areas of farmland engulfed by water, while flash floods disrupted power lines and transportation networks. Pakistan's National Disaster Management Authority warned that with more rain expected in the coming days, there could be more flash floods and landslides. And let's end this tour of the world in Olympia, in southern Greece, where the Olympic Games were born in 776 BC. That's where today the Olympic flame was lit in a spectacular ceremony among the ruins of the 2,600-year-old Temple of Hera. The Olympic torch will then officially set off on the relay that will take it all the way to Paris. Actresses dressed as ancient priestesses brought the flame into life with the help of a parabolic polished mirror. This is the first time the ceremony goes back to its full tradition after the last 2 editions were toned down because of COVID. Back to you guys.
All right, Claudio, thank you so much.
Very dramatic. All right,
yes.
When we return, you could call it a Z rating for many Americans and their precious sleep. New numbers show nearly half are not getting the shut-eye that doctors recommend, but why and how can that impact your long-term health?
First, after the break, though, the government crackdown that's brewing this morning on those seemingly convenient travel credit cards. Are you really getting all the benefits that you signed up for? We'll dig into it up next.
Welcome back. Next month, the government is holding a hearing to see if airline loyalty programs are really giving customers all the savings that they were promised.
It's an issue that affects millions of Americans. According to NerdWallet, 41% of us currently have a travel rewards credit card with an average balance of more than 55,000 miles.
Here with more on what you need to know about travel rewards is NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Roman. So what exactly is the government looking into here and why?
Yeah, it's a hearing. They're not alleging big examples of wrongdoing, although they do refer back to something that happened last year where they fined Bank of America for offering some of these rewards-based credit cards and then not giving the rewards to everybody. And so they did fine Bank of America for that, but just trying to make sure that it's not a bait and switch. The government, you've heard this from this White House before, this administration, trying to make sure people aren't nickel and dime. If you are promised some of these rewards on your credit card, they want to make sure you're getting them.
So if we have these in our wallet right now, what should we know about these travel cards? What should you look out for? What questions should you ask?
I mean, you really do have to keep on it because you need to keep track of the points. Are you getting the points that you're offered at the beginning? Are you making sure that you're paying the card in full? Because guess what? You could be offered points when you open up a new card, or points for flying, or points for purchases. But if you're carrying a balance, the 30% interest rate more than makes up for the perks. So you have to be really careful about whether it's the right card for you as well. For some people, cashback cards are actually better. If you're spending a lot, for people who travel a lot and fly, you want to make sure you're using that credit card, you're using it for purchases, but you're also using it for travel. Don't leave points on the table. You just read that statistic, 55,000 is what the average person has on their bank account or on their credit card balance. That is real money. You can use that money, and you need to figure out the best way to use it and then pay the balance. You've heard me say this a million times. At 30%, 20 to 30% interest rates, every balance you keep on a credit card is ruining your financial life. It just negates the whole benefit of the points if you're carrying a balance. Do not carry a balance. Very bad news.
For those who do want to get a travel credit card, what are some of the tips, especially for those who might be doing this for the first time?
Yeah, so look for the annual fees. Some of them are very, very high. Shop around. Sometimes the smaller banks have lower APRs, interest rates, and they have lower annual fees. Again, consider cash back. I'm a real miles person. This is just the way I am. I like it. I understand how it works. I use it for my family of 5 to make the big travel a little bit cheaper. But some people say you should consider cash back if you're using a lot of purchases. You can get 5% cash back on some of these cards with no or a very low annual fee, and that might be better for some people. It's up to you. There's no one size fits all, and it's one of those things in finance with your money. You just have to do the homework. But this hearing will be interesting because this administration is trying to show Americans we know you feel nickeled and dimed. We're going to continue to make sure we shine a light on it that you're getting what you deserve.
All right. Christine, some good advice.
Nice
Thank
to see you guys.
so much.
Very good advice. Great to see you. Well, if you feel as though you didn't get enough rest last night, you're not alone. Sleep seems to be evading a majority of Americans these days.
New polling from Gallup shows 57% of people say that they would feel better if they could get more sleep. But catching those Z's, it's easier said than done, and stress could be playing a major role in why so many are struggling to sleep.
Let's bring in Dr. Anne-Marie Morse for more on this. She's a pediatric sleep medicine physician at Geisinger Medical Center. She's also the spokesperson for the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. Doctor, good to have you with us. So just 26% of people say they get 8 hours or more of sleep a night. How serious is this problem, and why is it that we think Americans are sleeping less?
So we know that this is a really quite a critical problem. In fact, the challenge is that it's not a new problem. In 2014, 10 years ago, the CDC declared sleep disorders in the United States an epidemic and a major public health crisis. And we realized that this wreaks absolute havoc on all individuals who are not getting the right duration of sleep. So whereas in 2014, it was 1 in 5 adults were having sleep issues. Most recently, it was 1 in 3. And now we're seeing it approximating 1 in 2 people not getting the right duration of sleep. And stress is definitely going to play a major role, and unfortunately has a bidirectional relationship with the type and quality of sleep that you get.
Yeah, I mean, especially younger women seem to be reporting the highest levels of stress. Talk more about how stress is linked to this lack of sleep.
Sure. So we see that when a person is not sleeping well, number one, you're going to wake up already on the wrong side of the bed, pun completely intended. You're not going to have the same degree of attention, the same efficiency that you normally would have. Your cognition is going to feel slowed. That's going to make you feel stressed. Now that you were less productive during the day, how do you think you're going to fall asleep during that night? You end up laying in bed, ruminating on all the things that you hadn't gotten done and now are being piled up for the next day. And so we recognize that the two are very much intimately related. Many times, one of the best strategies that can be implemented is actually evaluating your time management, and it can be a key to success for stress management as well as for getting those right number of hours of Z's.
How does not sleeping impact our physical and mental health?
So we recognize that when we're not sleeping well, it negatively affects the front part of our brain, our frontal and prefrontal cortex. This is where our executive function is, our decision making. It also is where a lot of our judgment and impulsivity is. And so therefore, we do find that when we're not getting the right quality, duration, timing of sleep, we tend to be more impulsive, more reactive. Our mood is more labile. We recognize it does put us at a greater risk for depression, anxiety, and many other mental health conditions. And in fact, individuals who have pre-existing mental health conditions like depression, sleep disorders such as not getting the right number of hours of sleep have been shown to greatly enhance the likelihood of people having suicidal thoughts and even attempts. So it's not a nicety. This is really something that is critically important to overall physical, mental wellness and well-being.
What's your best advice to folks who aren't getting enough sleep? What is the number one thing you tell them they need to work on?
So I think first and foremost, understanding why isn't that you're not getting the right number of hours of sleep. Many people are trying to get 8 hours of sleep, but only laying in their bed for 6. That math doesn't work. So first, really looking at what is your challenge? Is it a challenge in falling asleep, staying asleep, waking up too early, not feeling refreshed? By really being understanding of what it is that you're challenging with specifically, that allows you to partner with your physician to be able to create a tailored plan that is personalized to the challenges that you have. There is no one size fits all that is a quick fix for your sleep. It really is a matter of making sure you're rehabilitating what it is that you've developed maladaptive responsive to. So the wrong kind of behaviors in response to not sleeping well.
For people who are trying sleep aids like melatonin or Z-Quil or those types of things, do you recommend against that, or is that okay here and there if you think you need some help to fall asleep?
So I think that the major distinction when we're looking at the use of sleep aids is that if you find that you are habitually using them, you're using them for more than, even if it's once a week, this is a call to action that you need a further evaluation as to why are you having this regular difficulty. If it's a once off, I'm traveling and I just am having a difficult time sleeping, sure, I think that that's a reasonable thing. Melatonin might be an okay strategy to utilize. However, if you're finding that you're chronically using it, that's telling you that you have a sleep disorder, not just a one night off of a problematic sleep.
All right, Dr. Anne-Marie Morse, really important information. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Coming up, well, we all saw it coming. The GOAT herself, Caitlin Clark, not having that #1 pick in last night's historic WNBA draft.
But where did all those other superstars land? We've got all the highlights with the upcoming season tipping off just weeks from now. Stay with us. That's next.
We are back now with a look at the new faces of the WNBA and a new era for women's sports.
Last night's sold-out WNBA draft in Brooklyn was one of the most highly anticipated events in league history, thanks to rising stars like prodigy Caitlin Clark and her college rival Angel Reese. The hype is only growing. NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Gosk was in Brooklyn for the big night and had a chance to talk with some of the rookies who are hoping to take the game to even higher levels. What a night.
Yeah, it definitely was, guys. You know, the WNBA draft was the hottest ticket in town last night. 1,000 fans snapping up all those seats in just 15 minutes. Last season was the most watched WNBA regular season in 21 years, and it looks like with this class of super rookies, the sky is the limit.
With the first pick in the 2024 WNBA draft, the Indiana Fever select Caitlin Clark.
It was a surprise to no one that college superstar Caitlin Clark was at the very top of the new WNBA class.
I was just excited to get here and get it started.
The former Iowa standout guard, known for her stellar three-point shooting, says she's ready for the next chapter of her career with the Indiana Fever.
I'm 22 years old, and this is something new to me. This is a new challenge, and that's something I'm excited for.
At number 2, Stanford shot blocker Cameron Brink is joining the LA Sparks. And rounding out the top 3, the Chicago Sky selecting Camila Cardoso. The 6'7" center helped South Carolina win this year's national championship. 2024's star-studded WNBA draft class is already pushing women's basketball to new heights, even before they reach the pros.
Win or lose, like, we're growing the game. Playing in environments where you're having sold-out arenas, I mean, I think it's honestly unbelievable.
I'm surrounded by a bunch of powerful young women, and, you know, it's just great to be a part of this group.
Caitlin Clark helped drive this year's record-breaking college attendance and viewership,
including a historic 18.9 million people tuning into the national championship game.
The league's commissioner hoping to keep that momentum going.
Cathie, it's about time.
Yes, it's about time. This is what I've been waiting for. In women's sports, too long has been undercovered, undervalued, and this is our moment.
Ahead of Monday night's celebration in New York City, the WNBA's future rookies visited the Empire State Building. Former LSU star and Chicago Sky draft pick Angel Reese posting this selfie, writing, "Whole lot of buckets." Outside the draft,
I bought tickets for the first time ever.
the excitement for the upcoming season, undeniable.
I'm happy to be here to support women.
The WNBA season tip-off is just a few weeks away. Caitlin Clark will make her debut with the Indiana Fever against the Connecticut Sun. And you, just an idea of how excited fans are, go onto the internet right now and try to buy a Caitlin Clark Indiana Fever jersey.
No way?
It's going to be tough.
That's
That's
so
a
cool.
great problem to have.
I love it. Steph, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Some financial headlines now. Google is set to go all in on new AI technology.
Pippa Stevens joins us with that and other Money News. Hey, Pippa, good morning.
Hey, Savannah. The head of Google's AI business says the company will spend more than $100 billion over time to develop new technology. The CEO of Google, DeepMind, was asked at a TED conference yesterday about a potential $100 billion supercomputer reportedly being developed by Microsoft and OpenAI. That's the maker of ChatGPT. He says Google is spending a lot more than that, and it has superior computing power to rivals, including Microsoft. Meantime, Meta's Threads app has been described as a rival to X, but users have pointed out it isn't a good source for real-time information. The algorithm often shows old posts, and a new trending topics feature only shows 5 at a time. But now, Threads is testing a tool to let users filter search results by how recent they are. While sorting by recent posts isn't the same as chronologically, it could help people find posts about breaking news or other timely topics. And Starbucks is jumping on the Sweet Heat bandwagon. Starting today, customers can get one of 3 new spicy lemonade refreshers based on the SWICY or sweet and spicy trend. The sweetness of the beverages, dragon fruit, pineapple, or strawberry, are being paired with a spicy chili powdered blend and lemonade. Starbucks is also introducing a spicy cream cold foam that can be added to any coffee or tea drink. I'm really not sure how I feel about that one.
Especially at like 5 in the morning. Like.
I don't like spicy in general, but today I saw at Starbucks downstairs, like the big ad for it. I was like, it's an interesting call.
Wake you up.
Yeah, Pippa, thank you.
This morning, a new report is renewing concerns about the impact of social media on children.
And the American Psychological Association just released that report saying some social media features are particularly risky to young people. Now the organization is calling for greater steps to be taken to protect their mental health.
NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa joins us with more on the report. Emily, good morning.
Good morning to you. The American Psychological Association says change is needed soon, adding they believe the responsibility for that change falls on the social media platforms. The new report names, quote, particularly risky features that the APA says capitalizes on the vulnerabilities of young people's developing brains.
This morning, the American Psychological Association demanding change from social media platforms. An head-turning report detailing what it says are psychological threats to young people. The highly respected group writing in part, platforms built for adults are not inherently suitable for youth. Youth require special protection. The APA calling out features like endless scrolling, likes and follower counts, and push notifications that it says capitalizes on developing brains that are more sensitive to impulses, social feedback, and distraction. According to a recent survey noted by the group, more than half of teens reported at least one symptom of clinical dependency on social media, something families described in today's deep dive into the impacts of screen time last fall.
It can be really addicting.
They can begin to really hinder your life more than they do help it.
Instead of liking yourself, it's how much everybody likes you.
The report also noting how the freedom to scroll around the clock has been cited as the predominant reason why adolescents are getting less than the recommended amount of sleep. It comes nearly a year after the U.S. Surgeon General issued a landmark health advisory on social media use in adolescents.
We see rates of depression and anxiety and suicide and loneliness going up among young people. And I'm concerned that social media is an important driver of that youth mental health crisis. This is the defining public health issue of our time.
The APA writing there's been few meaningful changes since then, but some social media companies disagree, including Meta, the company behind Facebook and Instagram, which recently launched nighttime nudges to push young people to close the apps, and now also allows parents to schedule breaks for their kids on the platforms. Without laying out specific changes, the APA says there must be a comprehensive approach to fully address the dangers of an increasingly screen-reliant world.
And the APA says the onus falls on social media companies to protect their youngest users, but parents can help too. Its chief science officer recommends all devices in a household go on top of the fridge around 9 p.m. to really impact that sleeping habits. And hey, it could help adults as well.
I used to have to charge in the kitchen.
Exactly.
Yep, same.
Yeah.
Yes. Looking back, I'm glad I did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Emily, thanks so much.
Thank you. Well, Arkansas's first Black rodeo queen is taking the publishing world by the reins. She has released a new children's book inspired by her love of horses. Tylisa Hampton of our Little Rock affiliate has that story.
It's in every barn. A cowboy finds his purpose.
Good girl.
But for this cowgirl, Jadea Kirsch, it's right here with these animals. She found hope.
So when I was 6, I was sexually assaulted, and my mom put me in counseling. My counselor had invited us to her ranch, and she introduced me to a horse.
The horse, a mirror of her soul.
She sat me in a saddle, and she handed me the reins to my freedom.
Riding competitively until she made history at 18, being crowned Arkansas's first Black rodeo queen.
Before I even knew I was making history, I was just doing what I loved.
Now at 24, she's creating something special.
I'm the creator of the Cowgirl J and the Magical Lasso books.
Hoping to inspire young people.
Just really pushing Cowgirl J and diversity and representations, and so that the kids can see themselves represented in this industry, because there's so much more space for all of us.
Wanting young kids to know your past does not define you.
Statistically, I'm not supposed to be half the woman I am today. My mom had me as a teenager. My dad's been in federal prison my whole life.
Because in the face of adversity,
I'm like, I can't do it. Let me show you.
It's down this dirt road Jadea hopes to leave a path for kids.
Always show up for yourself and just keep thriving and keep going. And you never know who you might wake up and be.
Coming up, an Olympic-sized cleanup effort now underway in the City of Light.
After the break, how officials are making sure Paris's River Seine is ready for its summer close-up. That's up next.
Welcome back. Grab your tissues. Children and parents alike are feeling a little teary-eyed following the season finale of Bluey. The popular cartoon is known for taking on hard topics, and this latest episode definitely delivered. Titled The Sign, the episode showed Bluey and his family navigating a number of major life events, including a wedding and moving to a new city. The supersized season 3 finale clocked in at a whopping 28 minutes. That is the length of 4 regular Bluey episodes. Fans say it was time used well, and even as pro wrestler Johnny Gargano crying, calling it an Avengers Endgame level season finale.
Well, as the 2024 Summer Olympics inch closer, the city of Paris is working overtime. One of the most memorable elements will be when Olympic swimmers race for gold in the city's famed River Seine. NBC Chief International Correspondent Keir Simmons got a deep dive on the preparations.
Winding through Paris, famously separating the left and right banks, the Seine is set to be the centerpiece of the Games. For the first ever opening ceremony outside of a stadium, and, hopefully, the swimming leg of the triathlon. Olympic hopefuls braved its waters at a test event last summer. President Macron says he plans to dive in, along with Olympic officials.
I already did it last year, and I will did it before the Games with the mayor of Paris.
Oh, look! A major cleanup operation began 7 years ago, a more than $1 billion project. But tests carried out for NBC News this past weekend found high levels of bacteria in the water, caused in part, experts say, by recent flooding.
When there is no rain for several weeks, let's say 2 or 3 weeks without rain, you can actually reach really good water quality conditions.
These kayakers volunteer to find garbage in the river every week, who say the water is safe.
And you're in the water?
Yeah.
And you're okay?
Do you think I'm good enough?
Hopes hinge on the soon-to-be-completed $100 million Austerlitz Basin, designed to catch rainwater and relieve the stress on the city's sewage system.
Competitors in the 5 mile through Paris.
If it works, then this Olympics will turn back time to when Parisians would cool off in the river. And while swimming in the Seine by the public was banned in the city in 1923, the year before the last Paris Olympics, the rule was not always followed. Okay. I'm relying on you. A little upstream, in a peaceful village just outside Paris last year, I met up with a friend from French TV who lives by the river and swims in it. I guess you just do it. Chance to truly test the water. It's actually really, really lovely out here. Peaceful, beautiful, quintessentially French.
The life is good here.
I can say I swam in the Seine.
Thanks to Keir Simmons for that report. The city is hoping that fans, just like Keir, can also enjoy the Seine with plans to reopen the river to the public for swimming once again after the games as a legacy of Paris 2024. Are you jumping in?
Well, I'm not going there, so I guess not, but...
What do you think?
Now that Kira's done it, sure, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see. I just wonder if it rains or anything like that, how that, affects
Yeah.
everything, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah,
So.
it's a pretty neat project.
It is. It'll be fun to watch. I'm
Yeah.
so glad they're doing it. It's...
You didn't seem thrilled about jumping in.
Well, he did it, so there you go. Would you?
No, I would not want to do that.
Well, there you go. Well, Kira, you're braver than all of us. Thank you for taking the chance.
It's a no for me.
That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.